Hi, my friend. It's Pat Sloan here. We are on Boo Crew. So it is week number 3, and what happens with week number 3? The kettle boils, and the cats meow. So we have a kettle or a cauldron. Isn't this fabulous? I love the size of these. They're so nice and big. So fun. And then we have Mr. Spooky Cat. Ta-da! So I'll stand back. So these are our 2 blocks this week, and I am using this really fun fabric called Spooky Darlings by Ruby Society. It is so fun. And I'm going to show you the fabric for that. And then I have, right after that, it'll roll right into, I'm going to show you how the second part of cutting the borders for a beautiful morning. So I went ahead and just videotaped that so that you could see how I do it, and I will show it to you when we come back. So let's go. Picking the fabric for these last 2 blocks is interesting because it's a small quilt. There's not a lot of fabric, so let's take a look because I don't really want to muddy it up. Here are the, what's it, 4? Yeah, I guess I'm going to call this 4 because it's sort of like this is its own image. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 already. And what do I have color-wise? Blacks, whites, purple, pink, a little touch of orange. But there's not much orange, and there's not much orange in this line for me to use. So I am not going to do an orange cauldron because that would be bringing in fabric color, another one, and this is not very big. These are the last 2 blocks. So that means I need to be a little bit creative. So let's see what I do have available. So I pulled the pink and purples, and then I have this one navy, and it's sort of like a teal. It's a dark teal. I'm not going to use something I already used. I already used that for the hat, so I'm not using that again. And then I have a bunch of gray, a lot of gray. But I want to do something fun. So I think I'm going to make the cauldron out of one of these pinks or purples. And then the quilt block that's in the cauldron, see the quilt block there? That will be with this stripe. So let's address that one first. Yeah, wild, right? I think it's going to be so cute. Now, this pattern is the same as the background yellow, and I also have that in the gray, and I'm really going to lean away from that because I think I have enough other options. I don't need to use those and compete pattern wise, so we'll take those out. So that means my cauldron could be one of these 3, and this one I used a little bit of it here, and it's really nice. I like it because it's dark, and I think that the block will pop off of that really well, and I think that dark purple will be the best option, although the other 2 would be just fine to have more pink cauldron. That one's pretty light. I probably would go ahead. Now if you didn't like the stripe for the block, you could do something like the peach on here, like the peach ghosts. Those would be really sweet. I think that would be cute, but I'm going to do the black and white stripe because I can bring that in again since it's here, and I'm still thinking about flipping the tip. I had it flipped the other way so that the stripes, rather than going this way, the stripes went that way. So because see, they're not even lined up, which is making me nuts. So I think I'm going to have to fix that. So this will be the cauldron. Then I have for the black cat, I can do any of these things. So right away we will remove the bunnies because we're already using the bunnies here, so we don't need that again. So the cat could be done, could actually just be really black and have the skeleton fabric. The eyes and stuff, I don't have a lot of just white, but I do have this pink, which I think might be cute for the eyes and the ears. So if I want to go dark, I can use that. If I want to just stay with a gray cat, see, once again, if I use that peach, it works out really well. So I sort of like that. The ghosts are really directional, so I just don't want to go with the ghosts. Both of these patterns are the same pattern as the hat, so I'm going to remove all of those. So I've narrowed it down to either a teal cat, which, you know, I've not used teal anywhere, so if I use this print, it's the same as the handle. and the same as the eyes. So there's some sort of nice repeat, which works best for me when the quilts are small like this, so that you don't just sort of chop everything up too much with too many different fabrics, and they're large pieces. These are not small pieces. These are really big pieces, really big images. And so I think that it's nice to repeat. So I'm going to go with this and this. All right. That was fun. So I got all the filming done for the other video, and I showed you sort of my plan for doing the border of the smaller Beautiful Morning. And I thought, okay, let me just show you actually cutting it. I'll go ahead and do the measurements and cut it, and then show you what the usable piece is that I have left. But before that, I have these scraps that I sewed up. You know, last year when I sewed all those crumb pieces together all year long, which was pretty amazing, and then I kind of had a nice little break from it, and now as I'm getting pieces, I'm going like, oh, I could just sew these together and make 2.5-inch squares. Oh, I could sew this together, do the same. So I'm trying not to do a whole lot of this, but it makes sense for me sometimes, because particularly these were a bunch of little strips of the same fabric. So let me show you cutting them into the squares. Yes, excitement. Quilters excitement. We are such a bunch, aren't we? Cutting 2.5-inch strips will just make us happy. All right, so there I go. I've got to straighten the edges, because they're, you know, I didn't sew them super even. I wasn't worried because I was going to straighten it, but it's also very tight. It is not much wider. See, this is barely anything. Whoops. Barely anything that I trimmed. This side I'll have a couple places just a bit more, and some, like right there, there was none. So that's all. So those pieces were really, really close to the 2.5-inch. Okay. Now I will cut them into the chunks. And I really do like to do this with a 6.5-inch square versus this rectangle ruler, which I can. I just like the squaring up in the corner. I like the feel of doing this. Even if I, balance it a little bit higher, I just don't like this length when I'm doing the small pieces. So here we go. Now I'm cutting all that I can, so that I will have a group of green, pretty green squares. There we go. And then that leaves me with my waist as being this, which I could keep. And like last year I kept all of this. I would not have kept this, but last year I kept this and sewed it. This year I'm not keeping that. So there's a little bit of waist. Now here on this one, I will press it so that that seam allowance is going into the center rather than towards the outside, because it is so close to where I will sew them together that it'll be too bulky. So all I have to do is press it in, and I don't even have that issue. Same on this side. I'll press them both to the inside, and I will do that over at the iron in a bit. Okay, the other one I have is this guy, which was the bubblegum fabric that I'm using for spooky, the Boo Crew, I'm sorry, using for the Boo Crew, that I did not use these, and I had a few extras here that kind of give it the rest of the width. What do I have? So this is 5.5, which means I need 5 inches to get 2 squares. So super, super, super. I will do my 2.5-inch strips first, and then see what's left. So I've got this piece over here left, and that little piece. Now these two, I am going to leave the bottom as the waist. You know, I want to get these images. So the bottom part will be the waist, and 1 square, and then a 2nd square. Now what I'm going to do here is see, now this strip is really tiny, which means it's all seam allowance. And when I would sew this to do the next seam allowance, it'll only be a little bitty piece here. So I'm going to rotate it and trim that off, because that just makes sense to me rather than fussing with it. So I'm basically cutting that off as waist, that seam allowance part. So that's waist. Let me just pull these down so you can see them. So I've got the little waist pile. So there's two, oh my goodness, look how cute he is. Look how cute he is. What color will this be? Pink or red? Pink or red? And Now I'm gonna do the other one and see what I have here. I'm kind of in the same boat. The seam allowance now is up at this top here, so I will just rotate it again and trim away that seam allowance. I actually have to shore up this edge over here because it was a little off. Okay, so there's some more waste. Here's some more blocks. So I got 4 blocks out of this. Here's my waste pile, and then I have this strip. So this strip I will probably go and put in the scrap bag. And that gave me all of these 2.5-inch squares to put in with the bins with all the others. Now I will switch over and we'll do this guy. We'll put the board, I'll cut the borders for Beautiful Morning. So now I'm ready. I'm getting paper, I'm putting numbers down so that I can cut the borders exactly and walk through actually cutting them instead of just talking about the process like I did the other day. So I measured the sides. They are 44.5, and I will do a 5.5-inch strip. That's what I'm cutting for the width of the border. And then I needed to do the math to figure out the top and bottom border, because this is the side border here. This one's the side border. And for the top and bottom, the width across is 34.5 with the seam allowances. Then I'm adding 5 inches on either side. So basically I'm taking the 34 plus 10, 5 and 5, and that is 44, and then adding a 1/2 inch for seam allowance. So that will give me the proper length. Now what I will do is there actually ended up being the same number, 44.5, which is bizarre. But that's the way it happens sometimes. And I am going to cut a 46-inch strip. So it's a little bit bigger. That way, if I'm using a longer piece of fabric, if I have a little jiggling or something, I want to then cut it to size after I just cut that bigger strip and get sort of the longer strips out of it. Then I will trim each individual one so that I'm more careful and I'm, just take my time. So first, here's the top again. So I've got the smaller one. I put the stripe. I'm using the pink stripe for the inner border, and then the green for the outer border. And this is the green that I will need to cut. I'm going to cut a 46-inch strip off to begin with. So let's take a look. So now the edge here is not, whoops, this edge here is not 100% straight, but since I'm oversizing it, I'm not worrying about that. I don't need to trim it now and then trim it again. That's just kind of a waste of time because I'm already going to cut it longer than I need. So I will need to mark, since I'm doing 46, I will go to the 30 here, and I'm just marking 30. Then I take the 30 down to the start, and I need 46, so that means I need at the 16-inch mark. 30 plus 16 equals 46, or you could do it 30 plus 10 is 40, plus 6 is 46. So that's where I'm at, and this is why I oversized it a little bit. I'm not worried about losing a little bit of fabric for, just being sure I don't undercut it, because otherwise you've wasted a lot of fabric, because I'm doing this with no seams, borders with no seams, and so I do have the fabric, but I still don't want to just be careless. So there we go. I've got my cut. This will go back on my shelf with all the other birdsong fabric, and then I will be taking this guy, whoops, there's the pin. I'll be taking this guy and I will be cutting the 5.5-inch strips from it. So I can cut, and those, once again, they're going to be a little bit long, so that gives me a chance then to shore them up. So because, here we go, let's go out a little bit. Can we? No, I can't get the camera far enough away. I'm just pushing it back on the table. Here we go. So here's the whole length from here to here, and what I will do is I will fold it. And now this is the fold of the fabric at the top, like it comes off the bolt, so I'm working length of fabric. And then down here is the selvage side. See the selvage side? So I am going to cut from there. And what I have is I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 layers. And I will first just trim. So you can do it 2 ways. You can just go a little past. I need my 5.5 so it's facing me. Okay, so my 5.5 is here at the top. Okay, so I could just trim past and then rotate it and trim it exact, or you could trim some off to make the straight edge, and then from there trim your 5.5. It depends on what you like to do. And normally I would trim the edge. I will trim it first and then take the ruler on top, but this time I'm going to try it the other way. I'm going to make it a little bit over. Here's the 5.5, and I will cut. There we go. And this is, you know, folded, so it's actually just 2 strips. Even though I showed you 4, because it's folded, it just ends up being 2 strips. So I'm going to have to do 2 of these. Okay, I'll show you in a minute. All right, so now I have the 5.5. And be sure, pull it down. It's just making it on my mat so that I have enough room at the bottom and the top that I'm still on the mat. See? So there we go. So this is 5.5, and I will trim this off. And this could go for the salvage quilts. So I got enough of it, and that is 2 of the borders. But you'll see that you're cutting through 4 layers because it's folded over. See? Open it up. There we go. And that's 5.5 inch wide. So there's 2 borders, and now this is already a straight edge, so I can just cut the other 2. And then from here, I will cut the exact size from the strip, which is 44.5. So they are a little long right now, and that's okay. So put this guy over here. Now this is what I have extra. So this piece of fabric, which is folded over, so this is how wide it is. I have a 20 inch, basically 20 inch width of fabric piece that is now going to go in my bucket to use for the table topper sew along, for the table topper sampler from the book. Sampler we're going to do, I'm using a lot of birdsong and some solids, so this will just go in that bin to use for that project. There we go. So I feel like it's more economical to do it this way if I want to have a border with no seam, that I have a nice big usable chunk of fabric left over. If you were putting seams on it, then your side borders would both have to have a couple inches to get your seam. If you're doing this size quilt, it could be totally different on different size quilt. So to trim the little bit off of here that needs to be done on all 4 borders, I still kept 2 of them together, and I will get the one end even, which it is. So then down here, it's the same process as I was measuring before, but now it's more precise. So I'm at the 30 inch. So I mark it 30 with a pin, and I take the pin down to the, beginning marking down at this end. And then on my table, I'm going to go to 44.5. So I'm finding 44.5 on the ruler on my table, which I find to be accurate enough. For what I'm doing, this is an Olfa mat underneath. It's a navy Olfa mat with the markings, and it works well for me. So 44.5, and I trim these little pieces off. And then what will I do? I will sew these plus the 2 that I get off of here. I will sew all 4 of those together for another green block, because I just can't leave it. Let me know if that was useful to see the second part of this process. Thinking through it was the first part. Doing it is the second part. Now I get to sew it on. So let's see how that border turned out. Here it is, the green. I did the green border, and I did the pink inner border stripe. So this is the stripe from Birdsong in the pink. There we go. I am so in love with seeing the green on here. I think it just really pulled fabric colors out of everything. Oh, it's upside down. Yep, I can see the birds upside down. You're going, turn it, and I can't hear you. So there. So, so pretty. So that is my beautiful morning, and I will show you to you again one day, this whatever day it is this week. What is that, Friday or something, that we look at that again? Okay, Boo Crew also has the cross stitch portion, which is the next section, and I have not done any of it. So here I am. I am now like going to catch up. Let's see if I can catch up this week. It's I have done very little cross stitch in the last week, so I'm behind, but that's the way it goes. So here we go. Let me just stick the kitty up here and the cauldron. So I wanted to show you here the stripe. I just am so excited about how that stripe turned out. It's better than I even thought. Next week we will get the layout. And so you'll be able to assemble all of these and then decide whether you want to put more of a border on it. It doesn't really have another border, any more patchwork to it. I'm thinking of using, oh here, I'll just move the camera down. I'm thinking of using some of this combo here, like the sort of the children in the, you know, all the costumes and the bubblegum wrapper fabric, and then these two, and sort of making some squares for maybe just a top and bottom border. So that's kind of what I'm looking at and thinking about. Or I may not do that at all. I might just save these. The stripe will be the binding on mine. I might just go ahead and finish as is, because, you know, life is short and we are having lots of fun sewing lots of things this summer, and I might just have to have that time to sew something else, like midnight moon blocks or cross stitch. So you have to pick what you're going to spend your time on. So I can't wait to see your spooky blocks, and let me know if you enjoyed seeing that longer version of doing the border for my beautiful morning. I love you. Mwah. Thank you for being here in the Sloan Zone. I will see you online.